This video is about the relationship between free trade and fair trade, and the positives and negatives of both sides. We'll focus this video on three main topics. One is the regulation of foreign investment, two is the labour force, and three is the dependency on primary resources for developing countries. The relationship between colonisers and colonies is the most important foundation of trading in the modern world. After World War II, we saw a critical point in the history of modern trading systems. The introduction of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which later was replaced by the World Trade Organization, sought to open up worldwide markets and still to this day plays a key role in modern-day trading. The WTO believed that through removing barriers to trading, developing nations will industrialize and so experience economic growth. However, the World Trade Organization's policies, along with the involvement of the World Bank and the IMF, more often than not hold the interests of the developed nations at the forefront of their policymaking. The World Trade Organization's regulations have changed the way that large multinational companies are able to break into local markets in developing countries. Opening up the market, removing subsidies from countries' government and reducing state involvement are some of the key characteristics of trading that the WTO are currently targeting. It seems that global trading under the WTO's rules helps developing countries to increase GDP. However, there are also a number of negative aspects. Global trading carries huge benefits as well as risks for all people involved. However, the potential downsides might be far greater for the countries in the global south. So what is free trade? Free trade is trading between a number of countries, which is done without tariffs, subsidies and little regulation. This encourages trading and exporting from and to developing nations. The problem of free trade is that there is little control over the demand and the price of goods. Wealthy countries producing luxury goods experience economic growth, while poorer nations relying on primary resources that cannot control prices will tend to shrink. And what is fair trade? Fair trade seeks to rectify this issue by ensuring that poor producers can obtain a fair and stable price for their products, while also trying to control the intervention of transnational companies in the developing world to avoid exploitation and the sole control of the market. The first point focuses on the legislation and regulations surrounding trade. This focuses on foreign direct investment, TRIPS, TRIMS and transnational corporations. In 2007, about a third of all global exports were as a result of TNC investment, and in 2013, global foreign direct investment is projected to reach $1.8 trillion US. These figures may appear to be beneficial for developing nations, but only a small proportion of foreign direct investment reaches the poorest of nations. This in turn creates a further imbalance and broadens the gap as wealthiest countries grow faster. Of TNCs and foreign direct investment ultimately is one of profitability and control, and the longevity of their presence in a developing nation is questionable. This can result in the exploitation and abuse of a nation's resources and people. Fair trade, on the other hand, seeks to remove exploitation and allow a nation's product to be sold for a fair price. This is done by targeting the poorest of farmers in the poorest of nations. This can be achieved through state regulation by controlling the prices of a nation's product and also the means of production, with regards to sustainability, cultural respect and technical development. On a larger scale, developing countries should adopt protectionist legislation by putting up barriers that benefit local producers. However, for farmers to gain from this fully, their products have to be competitive on the global market. The only way to do this is to develop a system of technology and information transfer. However, in the free market, TRIPS limit the transfer of technologies and do not allow southern entrepreneurial activity to infiltrate the global market. The World Trade Organization also implements intellectual property regulation, which means developing nations have to develop with little assistance and limited information. Both TRIPS and TRIMS are a hindrance to development in the global south. They give an obligation for the state to increase regulation, but are almost always for the benefit of foreign investors, and leave the least developed countries in a position where it is very difficult to penetrate into more profitable markets. The deregulation of free trade might seek to open global markets, but often has a detrimental effect on the developing nations, particularly for the labour forces. The second point focuses on the labour workforce, with particular reference to Thailand. Prapan is a trade union representative.
ตัวอย่างผลกระทบของฟรีเทรดที่มีต่อแรงงานในเมืองไทยยกตัวอย่างง่ายๆในปี 2537 มี 2 เหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้น 1. ที่ภาคเหนือมีพนักงานมีแรงงานที่ตายโดยไม่ทราบสาเหตุแต่ว่ารัฐบาลกับตัวแทนของโรงงานอุตสาหกรรมเนี่ยบอกว่าสาเหตุการตายมาจากเรื่องจากโรคเอดส์แต่ว่าจริงๆแล้วสาเหตุการตายนี้ค่อนข้างจะคลุมเครือไม่มีใครรู้ว่าสาเหตุการตายจริงๆมาจากอะไรในปีเดียวกันเกิดเหตุการณ์ที่น่าสะเทือนขวัญที่โรงงานตุ๊กตาแห่งหนึ่งในประเทศไทยเช่นเดียวกันคือมีพนักงาน240 คนเนี่ยถูกไฟไหม้ตายโดยทั้งหมดเนี่ยเป็นผู้หญิงทั้งที่เรื่องของความปลอดภัยในเรื่องอัคคีภัยเนี่ยได้มีการพูดคุยกันอยู่แล้วแต่ว่าไม่มีใครปฏิบัติตามนี่เป็นเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นในปีเดียวกันแล้วก็บอกได้ว่ามาตรฐานของความปลอดภัยของแรงงานในเมืองไทยเนี่ยค่อนข้างจะต่ำในปัจจุบันสถานการณ์เหล่านี้ไม่ค่อยได้ดีขึ้นโรงงานอุตสาหกรรมมีมากมายบางแห่งดีขึ้นแต่ว่าโดยภาพรวมแล้วไม่ได้ดีขึ้นเลย
The third and final point focuses on developing countries and their dependency on primary resources. Free trade systems cause global economic growth. However, the growth is often uneven and due to the dependency on primary resources for developing countries, which are often more vulnerable to global price fluctuations. Another consequence of free trade is that while many other developing countries have eliminated their trade barriers to access the global market, they have seen rich countries keeping theirs, preventing them to gain any control of the export of their primary products and limiting their export income. Jack works for a local NGO in Senegal and is involved in a number of fair trade schemes.
Depuis que nous créons scheme bobu mom daf nu really dimbali ndax depuis lors ñun ñi di béykat yi ak ñi di defar artisan yi ñun ñëpp dañuy gis bénéfice yi ndax suñu dund dafa gën a yomb ndax li ñuy gagné dafa ëpp dafa dolli léegi nii gis nga ne sax dañu organiser wu ci ay coopérative te gis nga coopérative bi depuis bi mu amee ba léegi ñu ngi tabax ay l'école ñu ngi tabax l'hôpital léegi ñu ngi di jigéen yi di seen suñuy jur ñu mën a am ku leen di dimbali fii ci biir suñu communauté léegi gis nga ne tamit suñu coopérative sax bokk na si ñi di defar cotiser na pour defar tali boo xam ne nga ngir ñu mën a am ay jokkoo ak yeneeni village yi nga xam ne ñoo ñu wër affaire yooyu ba daal franchement fait baax na tamit ci ñun te dina tax aussi ñi nga xam ne ñu ngi ci yeneen dëkku yu développé yi ñoom ñu mën ñoo dimbali ndax dañuy dimbali ñun ñëpp ñoo bokk àddina bi te dañu war a dimbalante bu ko defee ñoom dinañu xam ne ñu ngi jënd li ñuy jënd ki ko defar mu ngi si jëriñoo te ñoom tamit ñu kontaan ci li ñu jënd waaw.
Government should intervene economically with a system of fairer trade in mind, as this brings companies to the market themselves and allows substantial budgets to be allocated to communities. These communities create a social responsibility and is a way to materialise equity and social justice. This political stance has been proven to be efficient in reaching development in Mauritius and Botswana. Also, historical evidence from successful countries such as South Korea or Taiwan strongly suggests that liberalisation of foreign investment is not necessarily conducive to development in domestic industries. Thank you very much for watching this documentary, and we hope you agree with us that fair trade is more important than free trade and should be implemented as quick as possible.